Friends, patriots, welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to see you. Robert Imbriali here. Another fun show planned for you today. Lewis set up three amazing guests. Actually, initially set up four, but Christine Geiger, I know we promoted that she would be on. She is actually doing, as in her words, political stuff today. There's something going down in Michigan that she was needed for. So she's going to join us on an upcoming show. She's not here today. But we do have Lezley Shepard's going to be joining us. She's not in the back room yet, but she will be. Keith Blandford, and also Bill Jackson is here. And we're going to start with Bill because Bill is here. He got here on time, and he's ready to rock. So before we get rolling, I just want to let you know that you could follow us on Telegram, a good place to see the pieces that you may have missed in the news show. T.me/Renegade Media, or just look up Renegade Media on Telegram. You can also email me at robert@renegademedia.tv. And if you want to follow what Lewis is doing, just go over to screwbiggov.com to keep on top of everything that Mr. Herms is involved in, including rememberyouroath.com, Freedom in Action. He's got swag there, and also his social media is the best way to find him. Sometimes it's hard to find him a little bit on the socials. Alrighty, here we go. We're going to have a fun day today because what we wanted to do is bring in people who are in the fight, in the battle, rather than just talking about it kind of from afar, like a lot of the, we're doing on the news here. Certainly, it's really, really amazing to hear from people who are in the battle, in the fight directly. So our first guest today is Bill Jackson. Bill, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here, Robert. I'm glad we could actually get on here and, be able to converse like this.
Yeah.
You forgot me.
But don't forget my buddy.
I got to meet your buddy. I haven't met your buddy yet.
Yeah, Matt Geiger. I met Lewis down at the Take Our Border Back event.
Okay.
Down in Neumi. And we had a great time. I work for Midas Gold Group, and I do the Boomerang podcast. I got some cool interviews up. I got Juan O'Savin up there right now. We spoke with Juan yesterday, but I've just been somebody who's getting in the fight like everybody else, trying to find my wings and find where I can help out. So I've done, sponsorships. I try to, throw some money at the causes, the people like, Noelle, right? Patriot Mom 007. I want,
Right.
I want to make sure people like her, have what they need in order to, continue the fight. So if there's anything, myself or Midas can do, you let us know.
Outstanding. Bill, what have you been up to? What's the story?
Well, we just have been doing a couple things. Last week, we had the Board of Supervisors meeting that we attended. And of course, Lezley, which is, also a guest here, she is a Spitfire. She's been attending these Board of Supervisor meetings. And of course, they're very tricky. They put out the agendas the night before the actual meeting, and they don't give people actual proper time to prepare. And then they vote on 92 agenda items in unison. Yay. No discussion, even though there's unruliness from the audience, according to the local sheriff. He was appointed on the 8th. You guys in Maricopa County have a new sheriff in town. His name is Russ Skinner. And 30 years, and he doesn't really run on the Constitution, runs on taking care of the community. But maybe he could probably take care of the community by... That would be great.
Yeah, would be a good place to start, right?
That's what we tried to do. We tried to make an attempt to go to the sheriff's office yesterday. We had a great attendance of people. Lezley was there. Local moms that I've met that are hard in the fight. We had Jerome. I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm not even going to attempt, but he's running for office here. An amazing guy. And a bunch of other patriots that went to the sheriff's office to demand a meeting with him to see where he stood on the Constitution. Where Michelle Swinnick revealed to me at the Republican conference meeting, the Republican meeting at, what is it? What do you have, DLs around here or something like that? Districts?
Legislative district.
Legislative, the LDs, LD 12.
Hey, Lezley.
Perfect.
All right.
Love to see her. That right there. This woman right here is an absolute warrior and a patriot. And I mean, everybody right now should be giving her a round of applause. Go watch her videos, follow her wherever you can. But Lezley, good to see you, dude.
It's good to see you, warriors.
So what did you think of what you saw yesterday?
Well, I thought it was actually it was really nice that, just sporadically we just made a decision that we were going to go down to the sheriff's department. We took some literature with us because we wanted to make sure if we did not speak to the actual sheriff, which we knew there was a high possibility that we wouldn't, we wanted to make sure that we went down there with things that helped him to understand why we were coming there. We weren't just coming to have a meeting with him. We were wanting to provide him the common law case that was filed on the 18th of August here in Arizona, which is now before Clarence Thomas, and he's looking at this case. And we also went down with the election laws within the Constitution. And of course, we went down with rememberyouroath.com. So we wanted to make sure that when we went down there, it wasn't just about showing up and possibly being turned away. It was us showing up and showing up with why we were actually showing up. We wanted them to have what they needed to understand what we're concerned about. So,
Absolutely.
and the legislative district 12 is where Michelle Swinnick was speaking the other night. And again, she, on these big screens with even clear proof of the receipts of the tabulator slogs, it literally proves how much shenanigans was going on, and that there should have been no certification of any election that ever happened based on even just the slog files, let alone all the people that stood there in the freezing cold weather on November of 2022 waiting.
And I mean, obviously, we can go into the fact that there's private security there. You have Maricopa County Security Services. So it's basically a private security firm for the county, for the BOS, to come in as their little private goons.
Yes.
But he talks out of turn. What's his name? Hillman? Hillerman?
Are you talking about the chairman?
Chairman.
Yeah, that's Jack Sellers. This year's chair is Jack Sellers.
So can just snap his fingers and they can tell you to get out of a building that you paid for.
Yeah.
You committed a crime, but you're calling them out. And then to have a sheriff go on video the next day and talk about how you were being unruly.
Right.
That's kind of throwing down the gauntlet, don't you think?
Absolutely. And we have since written him a little email today asking for a meeting, and also letting him know that if he is going by a knee-jerk reaction, that he obviously has not been paying attention to not only the American Disabilities Acts that they've been violating, but the oath in which he's sworn to uphold, which is the Constitution. And they're violating that at the Board of Supervisors every time we go down there. And so if he's going to identify us as unruly, well, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit that maybe he was just speaking out of one little instance and he wasn't paying attention to why we actually got a little bit disruptive at the end. It was because we are tired of the double standard. They do not allow people to call in public comments from home. So if you're a disabled person, or if you're a person without a vehicle, guess what? You don't count to them. So that's not acceptable. So what happened was one of the a couple of the Board of Supervisors weren't there, but one of them specifically had identified that he was going to start speaking after public comments, which is the time in which we're not allowed to speak via internet. And we let them know we don't want to hear him speak. We don't want a double standard. And that's what ended up clearing out the room. And then they said, don't you want to hear your legislative district, speak? And we said, no, we don't. We don't want a double standard. If you can't let we the people speak, we don't want to hear him speak.
That was during public comments, correct?
Yeah, it was right at the end of public comments.
So do they always get a chance to speak at the end of public comments or no?
If they're there in person, I mean, what do we have to do? We have to hear them. But when they're via webinar, We've made a decision. We're not going to listen to it anymore. No.
And then
You can
another
clear the room
question.
every single time when we're done with public comments. We don't want to hear them talk.
Since
If you can't show up, we don't want to hear you.
Absolutely. But since they adjourned and didn't return, and then convened an emergency meeting with no discussion about who was supposed to be appointed as sheriff when you're supposed to.
Question. Very good question. And that's what we're going to want to know when he sets up this meeting. We're going to speak into it as if he's going to, and, give him a little bit of time. But if he hasn't by the next Board of Supervisors meeting, we'll be happy to call up the sheriff right there from the public comment spot. I mean, that's what it's there for. It's our public comment. It's our public meeting.
Absolutely. Hey, Robert, do you have that video of the sheriff and what he actually said?
I do have it. Hang on here just 1 second and we'll play it.
Yeah, that was enough of that.
Funny
right?
guy. Funny
Behind him was nothing but a crime scene.
Exactly. And that's who he's supposedly supporting. I mean, is he supporting us? He mentioned us. Who was the us? The guys behind him?
Right?
Us, we the people.
That's right. There you go.
And from the video, it looked like the security seemed like the unruly ones.
Well, nowadays that which is evil is called good, and what is good called evil. So,
Upside down world.
yep.
And we have video of the security kicking actually myself and Lezley out because I was just supporting Lezley, in her. So she was going to speak out, so was I. And fact is, I agree with her. If the guy is on Zoom and we the people can't talk, why does he get to talk? Why does he get a platform and we the people don't? That doesn't make sense. Make it uniform, and then, maybe we can let it happen. But then to not have sheriffs in that Board of Supervisors meeting, it doesn't make sense. And you told me a story about how they disappeared.
Yeah, this was back in August. In August, they were doing a PC grab. In other words, they were trying to make it toward that something that's a political party, a private political party situation where really you can hand it to them if you wanted to on a piece of toilet paper, who you've chosen as your PCs within your party, and they're supposed to. It says that they shall appoint. Well, now they've done a power snatch. They did a couple meetings in August, and during that time, they literally did a power snatch. Well, that's where they also changed some audible rules, where they started making it where we can't turn in our agenda items. Just before the agenda item, they wanted them turned in by 10 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes, call to public, we could be sitting there for hours. And now if you don't have it turned in by 10, they don't let you. So it's just a lot of audible things that are going on. But what happened is during that meeting, because that's when we really started pushing the issue about them not allowing us to bring in our own drinks. So what we did is we went and presented to every single one of the security and every single one of the sheriffs what the Constitution says about these various things, and we let them know that these are the constitutional laws that they are sworn to uphold. I said they're there to protect we the people, but they also protect you as you do your job if you have an oppressive boss over you, because at the time they had pin zone, so we didn't know if that was the case. But ever since that meeting, no more sheriffs came. Even though I did notice one at the very last one where you and I were kicked out on the 7th, and he was sitting in the back down the hall. I didn't even know he was there until I went to the restroom, and I asked him what he was doing there. He goes, "Oh, they've been having problems with this door, so they have me here." So I'm going to make sure from now on, I always take the constitutional laws with us, so that if somebody's back there guarding the little back door, which seems strange, are they guarding it all night long? I don't know, very strange. But anyhow, we'll make sure that they get the constitutional laws that let them know what they are supposed to uphold, or what they're sworn to uphold. Are they sworn in? I don't know. None of the Board of Supervisors have the right oath. We determined that. We found that out.
Is that where you're referring to? Are their oaths legal according to the Arizona Charter? Correct. That's
it.
the document, the sui juris document that we presented to Russ yesterday, correct?
Well, actually, that's the common law case that we presented yesterday. And then later on, which we read out loud to them, one, it was the day that Lewis was here. He got kicked out and Daniel Wood got kicked out when Daniel was reading the quo warranto that was written to the military because we found out they do not have the right oaths. And so then we, as a collective, we the people, in January, we took turns all in a row and we read it out loud to them. So now they couldn't act as if they weren't aware of it. And then I ended up getting kicked out in, I think, later that meeting. And then obviously a couple meetings later with you because we were refusing to let them give us a double standard.
And the fact is, I mean, let's face it, they are usurpers. They are sitting on that throne illegitimately.
That's right. They are.
We need to look at this. And you guys don't have a constitutionally bound sheriff because he stepped down as soon as he was able to get his little golden parachute. That's what kind of puts you into this really precarious position where you have one that's, basically appointed to, but by the, you got fox watching the hen house.
That's it. That's it.
I would love to actually, because is another aspect of that whole security force with Maricopa County Security Services. Apparently, it's from money from the Emergency Management Fund. Have you ever heard anything like that of where they're paid from?
No, but I'm glad that you're bringing that up because that's something we do need to find out. Are we paying that on our
I have
tax
it on
dollar?
video. I mean, I could actually find it real quick and maybe be able to get it up, but I mean, it was from the emergency something fund, but I do have it. The guy admitted it to me when I was asking him who he was. And, well, so you're private security. How's this work? No, I'm county employee. And then he said who he's paid by. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's my appeal to everyone is that when the legislatures do a bill or do something, take any action, they ultimately have to have it approved by the governor. The thing I want everybody to know is that the Board of Supervisors have been delegated powers that, first of all, they should never have been delegated because it actually says in the Maxims Law, you can't delegate a power that's already been delegated. When we elect officials, we know they're selected right now, but in reality, if they were elected, that is our delegating our power for them to manage business. Them then to delegate it out again makes it that much further away and makes it that much harder to put our hands on. That's the dangerous position because what we see happening down at those Board of Supervisors, and I assure you that probably everybody in every single state, every single county has the same exact setup. When these guys pass things, it doesn't have to go through the governor. It's passed. So that means when they want to install 5G towers in different districts, which they did in the last 45 days, they made decisions to install 5G towers in District 4 and District 5. We already know people are taking people to, they have court cases involved that show that these 5G towers are causing physical harm to people. They've already assigned it to where that all of our license plates can be surveillance now. No matter where we go, they're paying attention to where we're going. They just signed it over, or they just passed it so that now Maricopa County is going to be in charge of emergencies when emergencies come. Oh, and then just to think they just now, these things are a big deal.
This is scary stuff. I mean, it's honestly to where these, well, you saw them standing behind the sheriff, could literally make your life like China, just like that.
Yeah.
Jack's nickname is China Jack, just so you know. He has a lot of pictures with him in China. China Jack.
Wow.
Hey, well, I don't want to keep Keith because Keith Blandford is such an amazing patriot as well. So we really should bring him in on this roundtable because, the stuff he's discovering in South Carolina and I've heard him speak many times. So the man knows his stuff, but it's the same story. And I know from Miami It's the same story. It's money laundering. It's these little committees that go up to the board of supervisors or whatever you want to call them, in every little municipality, and it's money laundering. It's just a big circle of money laundering, and it's nuts. And it's why I'm watching my country go down the drain because of it. Keith, you got anything to say, brother?
Well, can you hear me? You've got good copy?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Bye.
I think keeping in perspective, right? We're all happy warriors here. If you want to put it in what we're doing, we're essentially the French in Vietnam, right? We are the expeditionary force, right? We're the firecrackers. We're the ones that will not put up with it. So we're in first. So what we are doing, all of us, is we're defining the battlefield. We are gathering the information and the intelligence, and through years of work by all of us, tedious work, frustrating work, we've been able to identify the methodology of our enemies. We know what they're doing, right? And when we now are getting that information out to the public, like, okay, this is XYZ. Like, for example, South Carolina is a fake red state. They do it through open primaries. They have the GOP, which they're going to do. They concentrate on one geographic area like SC1 to get 3 delegates to carry blah, 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 blah. Right? We learn all this stuff, and then we provide the information to the public. They first defend that by saying it's conspiracy theory, then it becomes fact, and we keep gaining ground. Having been in expeditionary forces and small squad tactics for all my life, one of the biggest challenges that you have, right, is you're walking around with people who do not see and will not see. And you have to maintain your own sanity, right? Because that feeling you get inside, that sense of frustration. I mean, I bring it back to Christ. Christ said to the apostles that many people are not going to be able to see. It's you that get to see. They don't necessarily get to see. Doesn't make us better. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind just being fat, watching some sport, being a drunk or something. That probably would be easier, right? It's a hard task that you have. So I want to, when I, just jumping into this conversation, yes, this is happening, right? Yes, we have gotten our asses kicked sick ways of Sunday, right? But so what? This is the South, right? Bring it. I don't care. And I've been able to identify what they're doing, and now we're stopping them. I think for me, we're actually at the Battle of Midway, meaning we've given ground, and finally we've stopped them, right? Now it's starting to push back. Yes. So it's very important for us as the expeditionary forces to acknowledge that we have been successful, right? And what you're taking on is pure, unadulterated evil. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the other aspect of it is that God created evil. So if you're living a life as a happy warrior and you're deciding to be happy when, there's always going to be a win. There's always going to be something that you're going to be working toward, which means you will never be happy. So as you're progressing through this and God has chosen you for this mission, you're always going to be taking on evil. It's always going to be unjust. And if you don't address that, you're going to go bananas, right? You will be an ineffective warrior, right? So calm, right? Like, so we say, when you're going through the course, right? A close quarter combat course, keep your elbows tucked, and you're thinking in your head, it's just a Tuesday, it's just a Tuesday, it's just a Tuesday. And you're always 90 pulse. So for us, no unforced errors. Try to pull back the emotion on it and go, this is the battlefield that's presented before us, whether it's fair or not fair, and what are we going to do about it? And one of the things I'm looking at when we're working this as a team is mission creep. We're trying to solve everything all the time.
Let me hold it.
So for us, right out here, what are we hoping to accomplish? What is the point B? Is point B solving everything? Is point B moving the needle a little bit? I don't know. But I noticed that a lot of times we are really guilty of mission creep, and we're trying to fix everything all the time. So that's the biggest thing I see. I see when I'm looking at I would say the nonconformists, right? Which, the Southerners. Well, I think in terms of South Carolina first, right? Because if it's not in the South, if it's everything north of South Carolina is Yankee, everything south is Mexico, right? If it doesn't happen in the South, we don't care. But you can put it in terms of Americans. Americans are digging in and saying, we're not having this, right? We're nonconformists. So we just have to get into a space where this is the grind. We always call it embrace the suck in the military. So that's where we are. Or the Empire Strikes Back. We're we're in the crappy part. Han Solo just got carbon freeze. It's not the fun part of the story.
I don't know, man. Maybe we're all in the getting ready to go into the tunnel but what we need is, instead of having just me and Han Solo and a couple others, man, having, Gideon's 500, like David Clemens talks about, having 500 people show up to the next BOS, having 500 people show up to the next town council.
Robert should bring me in right away.
Instead of having 500 people have a voice. And when we even showed up 30,
let's get rid of your volume and you can watch it.
We sent a BOS running into recess and scared to come out and elect the sheriff in front of us.
Well, if you want to do that,
can I jump in here real quick, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a special guest joining us. SG1 Decode is here, and he's got a message for us. So I'm going to pop over to SG1 Decode right now because he's not going to be able to stay with us for very long. Go ahead, SG. We're waiting for you.
Wow, this is great to have these warriors on the show. This is exactly what we need, is warriors like this. And I think it's very, very important. And to tag on to both of what Bill and Keith, which I admire greatly, are saying, is we've created a program that's going to be able to bring people together under Remember Your Oath. And at the same time, through the app, we can easily get 500 to 1,000 people to go wherever we want to go. One of my concerns, though, and Keith, maybe you can address this, is it seems like within these GOP districts here and there, the challenge that we're having is the lack of communication between the boots on the ground that are warriors like Lezley and the people in the background that are supposed to be fighting for us. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, and again, I guess I can say this, there's more, this game has so many layers, right? So I'm always thinking in our area of operation. So, like with the Trump thing, right? Why in the world would Trump support Lindsey Graham or Nancy Mace or these people who are just vile? Why? Because they have more information than we do. So the lack of, one of the biggest frustrations when it comes to lack of communication is, you come in to
on the road. Is that 107 driving?
Stand up. Is that me? Someone talking?
No, that's SG1 Decode. We hear him talking in the background there.
Okay, so for the biggest information gap you have is between brass and, I would say, I'm a major, right? So upper brass, we're not behind the firewall, so we can't understand why in the hell would you support Lindsey Graham, right? Why would you do that, right? And the more that you do this, the more you start to understand, art of war. The best victory is to take over your enemy's resources and personnel and use them against them. You have to be able to understand that. MAGA is a political movement that's starting to get its chops. It's learning, right? So now we're starting to get cut and hurt and banged up, and we're starting to understand, this is how all this stuff sort of works. So the communication gap that I see is we keep looking to brass to provide us with solutions in our area of operation. And that's not how it works. So when I brief, and I do, so I send briefs up the chain of command. And there's two different things that I do. So I got to be more careful about how I say things. All right. I send briefs to people. I usually conduct it just on my area of operation, but I don't ask them what to do. I tell them, this is what's going on, and I'm providing you with these courses of action. It's called COAs, suggested courses of action. So if you're in a local community, you see all this communication gap, then you have to step up and say, this is what we're doing, right? And then what you hear is, what do I do to you as a bad guy? If I want to go into you and I want to scatter your local community, I'm going to give you 1 million tactics. That's what I'm going to do to you. So that means you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and your personnel are going to get strung out, right? And that's the goal. And then it's going to be discouraged, disillusioned, and I win. So you as leaders in your community, you have to be very strict and go to the top and say, what is the objective? That's the top. From the objective, you develop the overall strategy. When you develop your strategy, then you get to tactics, which is the action. So in the military, it would be brass, officer corps, NCOs. What's happening is everybody is doing NCO work, and I'm actually directing that, or people like me are directing you. they're like, oh, go get the sheriff, go get the gun, go. And everybody's trying to do this stuff, and you're just eating energy, human capital. So the communication, SG, is somebody needs to be able to establish the objectives. That to me is the biggest problem right now. Number one, frequency outrage needs to stop. Identify the battlefield for what it is, suck it up, and say, this is what it is. Then plan B, what's point B? What is the objective? Develop the appropriate strategies and tactics and execute, right? Quit complaining. There's no time for that. So that's my thoughts on it, SG.
Okay, so I will reveal myself. This is SG1 decode is Lewis Herms. How you guys doing today? I wanted to lighten it up a little bit. I had to come here today because all I care, and you, Keith, you know this, and Captain, you're getting to know me, and Lezley, it's about the warriors. And the warriors, the boots on the ground, and the people that are actually doing work in the trenches are, I think, the most important people to focus on right now. So number one, I really appreciate you guys coming on here, which is phenomenal. Keith, really quick, I understand the strategy and the fact that the boots on the ground should communicate what you indicated pretty much, which it in who mission control would be, I guess is one way to say it. My concern with that, and let's see if we're on the same page, is again, we're trying to create a grassroots, we the people uprising.
You're in the right. You're thinking in the right direction. I know where you're going.
Okay. But are you asking us to also get direction from somebody that may consider themselves at a higher level? What's your thought on that?
I mean, so here it can be communicated two different ways. So what are we in? We're in community. Read the book, The Starfish and the Spider, and that will give you an idea. If you have a centralized command, then yes, you take out the command and you take out everybody. So each one of these, and that what that translates to the United States is force symmetric warfare means the 10th Amendment, right? So your community, like everybody up in here, has the same passion and feeling and direction that I have. Do it in your area of operation. And if South Carolina gets taken out, you'll carry on, right? So these are networks. They're loosely networked, so people can't actually infiltrate that well or break down the structure, but they're all in the same mission. So it's classic fourth generation asymmetric warfare. That's what I'm advocating.
Well, I definitely see that our circles are getting bigger but tighter. I mean, that's what I see. And a lot of the infiltrators and they all know who they are. I mean, they're kind of coming out of the woodwork. But like you said, the grassroots people, the people like Lezley, and meeting people like that, and just giving them a voice that they can encourage others to do the same daggone thing. Because a lot of people want to speak up. They just don't know how.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. One of the trainings that we've done on the Troop Tour and Freedom in Action, and now it's going to be Remember Your Oath, and you're happen to be wearing a Remember Your Oath shirt, so that's pretty awesome, Captain. One of the trainings that we do, and I've talked to you privately, is we teach the importance of the tip of the spear action. What I mean by that is if we put all our focus in one direction, it's a lot more powerful. And the analogy I mention is if you set your phone down and you set a 20-pound, 25-pound weight on the crystal, it's not going to break. But if you put that weight on top of a pen, that crystal's going to crack. And what we've done is we've been very fractured in these meetings with the Board of Supervisors before, and very fractured in the school boards, by the way, where we're making an impact nationwide, very fractured. But when we have one or two messages, and that's it, or like you said, Bill, put 500 people in front of a sheriff or 500 people in a Board of Supervisors meeting, we have win after win after win, is because they can't take that focused pressure. So the organization is huge, and you warriors on the ground are amazing. I know what Keith does in the background too, which is pretty fantastic. And I know the work that Juan does that he gets zero credit for, but he does a lot of work in the background. Here's one of my concerns, and maybe Keith, you can address this. So I'm going to use, for example, I know Lezley in Arizona and a bunch of people there just went through this. In the GOP nomination process, they had somebody that we all thought was aces, total we the people guy, and at the last second, they swoop in and Lezley, correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy Rogers, by the way, I've already exposed Wendy Rogers, so I don't care if she's a Republican or not. She's already been exposed. But we had Wendy Rogers and Carrie Lake come in at literally the last second and put their weight behind somebody that wasn't even eligible.
Yep.
And then President Trump did also. And the next thing you know, she's the leader of the Arizona GOP, and we're like, they just got literally talk about the hour. I think it was like with 10, 20 minutes left or whatever it was, and it was calculated and it tanked. We already had the information on Zavoda, and we weren't thrilled with what we see. So Keith, what's your thought process on that? Because I can tell you, because I got the phone calls that night, that they were so unmotivated to move forward. Lezley would agree with that, I'm sure.
Yes.
After that, and these are warriors that are fighting tooth and nail in every meeting they could possibly get in. So what's your thought process on that?
Okay, and this is like really slippery, dangerous. This is dangerous stuff, right? So
I know
this isn't a matter of attorneys. This is a matter of spies, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to go into too much detail, but let's just say when it comes to palace intrigue, it's dangerous shit. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. I shouldn't cuss.
No, please.
It's you know, my wife and I, you know, in Mar-a-Lago and in different places, we understand this is not a joke. This is we out of just pure stubbornness as regular people have found ourselves in an arena that is pretty dangerous, right? So what's going on? Let's just look at an analogy. Let's just say that there's a leader who's surrounded by people, and one of those people, not necessarily nice, but has the loyalty of that leader, Caesar, right? And that person is maybe someone who's involved in giving out endorsements. Well, he'll go to Caesar and say, yeah, this is a good person for you to endorse. Caesar's very busy, has a lot of things to do, might not be able to analyze every situation. So he takes its advisor's words for it. The strange thing about this guy, though, is he may be taking money as a consultant from the very person that he just suggested be endorsed. So there is a problem here up at this circle, very top, that there may be people that are surrounding Caesar that don't have his or our interest. And when you get, by experience, when you ram up against that person and you go, oh, this is what's going on, you actually get personally frightened because this is serious stuff. And then Mossad, CIA, who the hell are these people? And we're just regular folks, and we just hit, you know, an advisor that's whispering in Caesar's ear because not only is he getting money, but it's on purpose. And listen, you're a commanding officer. I'm a commanding officer, right? You can't do everything. So you're going to take the information from your staff because you have to. So if one of those people are a poison pill, it may take time to identify it. I mean, Christine Cuomo, what a mistake. I mean, how could they? That girl dedicated her life to President Trump and election. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. That's, I mean, that's, yes.
And it's we the people on the ground. It's we the people on the ground. It's just hard to see the bigger picture and swallow that. But I hope that gives some calm to people if they understand that that's the game that's being played.
Yeah, and you know, because of our community has been through so much, like, and I don't, like, you know me, you know how practical I am. So the clone thing and all that, I just go away with that stuff. I don't understand it. I mean, I know what a body double is. I was one, right? I know what a body double is, but you know, there's a lot of times when the community gets stuck in a fact that's inconvenient, they make up something that they can't verify and you can't prove or disprove. So, you know, what you're saying right here, fact, that's easily proved. You know, I've seen some of the pictures of our politicians here in South Carolina. Yeah, they got them. Now, the question I always have, Lewis, is, you know, I've done this for a long time. I'm way up there in the chain of command. I always get really kind of funny about the white hats. Like, you know, you know, who the hell are they? You know, because if they must be in some other planet, because I've never met them. And I've always
Right,
said
right.
to him, and I told Juan that a bunch of times, the first time I see a true white hat, I'm going to punch him right in the face, because I'm so
Well,
tired of
yeah,
playing coy and all of it. I mean, come on,
right.
dude. I mean,
I'm,
we're all
I
adults
think,
here, capable of strategy.
yeah, I honestly think that we may be dealing with, and it's not to upset anybody, but it is what it is. I think we're dealing with black hats and gray hats.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray hats. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And a lot
Yeah.
of the
So
berets are out there. Berets are like that. And it's not my, I cannot play the gray hat role. I can't do it.
Well, I
nope,
think,
nope, I agree.
never really-
Ultimately, we the people though are the white hats. We the people are the ones that are going to take our communities back first, then our cities, then our counties, then our states, and then our country. And that is going to have to permeate through other countries in my belief system. So people want to go down the whole Q route. Great. Trust the plan, which I believe the last time that was said was September of 2018, if I'm correct, right? Was completely misinterpreted by whoever you want to call these people. They misinterpreted. Trust the plan never was to sit your ass on the couch and eat the popcorn. Trust your plan, if we want to go down there, was about we the people getting activated, because if we don't get activated, we will lose everything. If, let's say, somebody ran in and came in with a white horse, took care of it, we're going to lose it within years because we weren't part of the process. So I'm very proud of all of you. And Keith, I know some things that you do in the background. It's just extraordinary, the work you do. And I just really had to pop on here. I had no intention of coming on. We had a window when I'm driving here. But it just, to be on with warriors makes me feel really, really, really good, because this is the direction that we need to go, and multitudes of folks like you in every single community, if we are going to win this battle.
Well, now I know not to say that SG Anon's full of shit anymore. No, I'm glad, I agree with you. And the one thing to tag on that, and then I'll shut up, is, everybody says, Trump is letting everyone, experience this so that they'll re-engage, and Trump's doing this, and I just, Trump's a great guy and I love him. He's a great leader. But in my view, that's God doing that.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
thank you.
brother.
And I feel like a lot of, and I'm guilty of it, right? I'm waiting for the white hats to take action and do X. I still do it. I honestly still do it. And I get frustrated and angry. And I got to remember, the white hat for me is God, right? And when I'm all out of who, I've got to remember, okay, come back to the moment and reconnect and be, use gratitude, get into a grateful space and reconnect with the person who's really giving me the orders. Right?
Yes.
And that really helps me, because what happens is when I think about white hats or Trump or anybody, I'm giving my power away. It's an insecure feeling. I'm waiting for somebody else to act so I can be okay. And I want to short circuit that and just be okay now. Right. That's really important to me. And the only way I can do that is understanding that the problem and the country itself is going into a spiritual surrender, just like a person would. And when you get to a place where it's bad enough, you cannot come up with a human solution. You surrender and re-embrace the idea of God. And when you do, God says, okay, come on. And everything gets better.
Yeah.
That's
100%. Absolutely. I agree. And because this is God's war, and we are the soldiers for God. It's very, very clear. When people realize that, and they, like you said, they take their direction from the right person, which is, or I'm sorry, I should say entity. I apologize. The right entity, which is God Almighty. I think it just becomes very clear, and I won't say easy, but very simple. And if it's simple, it's God's work. If it's complicated, it's something else. Generally, guys, I really appreciate all of you. I have to step off here. Robert, I'm sure, has some fantastic questions for you. So we'll let Robert come on with some questions. And folks, thank you for taking the time to speak to the people and show that, it could be done on the ground. And you work so hard. And I am just so happy that you guys are on my side, which is, I believe, God's side.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Araceli.
Thanks, Louis.
Bye.
Thank you, Lewis.
Bye.
All
Well, that
right,
was
there goes
that was who
the
that
moniker
was.
SG1 Decode. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Keith, can you give us a little kind of an overview of the kind of work you do? It's so people can really put a finger on it and say, okay,
I want to
this is what.
on.
No, well, just a quick overview of what you're doing.
So, all right, and there's some feedback there. Is that me or is that no Lewis? Okay, Lewis is there.
It was Lewis. Yeah, he's just trying to turn off his Zoom.
I mean, basically, there's nothing fancy at all. I have been working. I was in the United States Navy in after 9/11, 2000 to 2006. Just I went to Officers Candidate School through the Army National Guard. I had to stop so my wife could get her United States citizenship. Came back in. I moved from the National Guard side to the state side, so I'm a state employee now. So that you'll see that many states like South Carolina have their own military Department of Military for South Carolina, very similar to what Florida has, Texas has. I'm a battalion commander there, and when I'm doing this, I'm running for United States Senate against Lindsey Graham, and we're doing that early.
Amen.
Hey, yeah,
So
exactly.
and so I speak not as a military spokesman or any of those things. I speak as a private citizen who is allowed to run for public office. So there's nothing that I'm doing that's outside the scope of what I'm allowed to do. In terms of human intelligence, I've been in that for a long time. I would say I have probably the best network in South Carolina. We have people in Antifa, BLM, DNC, SCGOP. I say that openly so they know. So a lot of times I know what the bad guys are doing before they know what they're doing. We literally have, video of Democrats and Republicans meeting together, conspiring to get rid of conservatives.
Wow.
Crazy world.
Go.
But I don't like taking unforced errors, right? So, I work closely with a component of I would say it's like, and y'all probably very familiar with it. There's the white hat level, then there's that next level. And I think I would say I'm right there, like second. I know the white hats may be there. I don't know there. I'm not behind the curtain, but because I've been so stubborn and what happened in 2020 was an insurrection, right? We know that, right? When it came to November 3rd, 2020, that was a coup. We all know it.
Yeah.
So what have I been trained in? COIN. You know what COIN is? Counterinsurgency. So what do you do when there's a insurgency, a counterinsurgency? So I immediately went to work in South Carolina developing local resistance to tyranny, which you did too. You just did it in a different. You weren't thinking that was a COIN operation, but it was. And we all developed this partisan resistance to the coup, and we are now in a place where we're winning. We're actually winning. We've done any counterinsurgency goes through a maturation process where at first it's a loose network and everybody's doing this and whatever. Then all of a sudden it gets critical mass and it becomes legit. Well, we're right there, right? We're right there. And we don't understand the machinations at the White House level. And what I will tell you is, because all of us in this room are very efficient at what we do, I have actually been so successful in some points that I'm sure it is a white hat of some kind who slapped me on the wrist and said, look, if you continue in that direction, you'll actually thwart us. And I'm like, I get that, right?
Yep.
So in any one of us, that can happen, right? But I'm not saying they're infallible, but we certainly we bump along that top. So I've been doing that for a while. I ran first. I've always been the person that I will never kiss the ring, right? I was trained as a 9502 public speaker, right? So I did a PIO stuff, public information stuff also. So, but right now it's just infantry. But I can speak well. I'm trained to speak well. I was trained in color revolutions, if you know what that is, which is essentially taking over foreign, which would be Ukraine, Libya, Syria, Iraq, the Orange Revolution, right? So I know exactly what's happening. As soon as we had Event 201, most people in my world were like, yep, they're doing it here. We knew it, right? So This is nothing about what we're experiencing as organic, not in the slightest.
Right.
This is being done with a military precision to our country. If you want to identify who your enemy is, it is communism. That's what it
Yes.
is as a whole, right? And that's an easy way of bringing in all the players. World Economic Forum, the CCP, the central banks, they're all under communism, which is essentially basic universal income. That's what they want, right? So, but not for them, right? But for us, right? And so we are a nation that was founded on the concept of God. And when we were developing the Constitution, they would pray for hours then they would sit down and do it. Communism, there's a famous phrase: "There is no God, only Stalin." Right? So
Right.
Communism is godless. We are of God. So you're basically good versus evil. That's what's going
That's it.
Wow.
That
Right.
is it.
Keith,
So
I got a question for you. How much
Yeah.
longer do you think the fiat dollar's got?
Well, I mean, the BRICS thing is legit. It really
It
is. The
Fair.
Bretton Woods Agreement is on fumes right now. I think that there's going to be a change. That in my view, it's going to have to be a commodity-based money. But you can argue that the petrodollar is a commodity-based money. There's an argument there that we're going to see a change. I don't know.
We got to start
I'm really
pumping
hesitant
oil.
because my first campaign was for Campaign for Liberty. Does anybody remember Campaign for Liberty?
Yep.
That was Ron Paul.
Mhm.
So the first, I went to the Mises Institute, for Austrian economics. I studied all of that. Keynesian economics played itself out, and we've been right, but there are a lot of right people in the grave. So where does it go? I have no idea. I mean, they've kicked this can down the road where it's defied physics at this point. I do not know how they're doing this. It's just phenomenal to me that it's still carrying on. And Americans don't understand how in debt they are and how they've done that on the backs of the people of the world. They have stolen from the people of the world, the savers. And that's the thing that's crazy, because I travel internationally and Americans still kind of think the Rambo world, a lot of them. We're hated. We're deeply hated around the world, right? And if this thing flips and we lose that dollar, this is going to be a wild ride. It's going to be
I
a wild
understand
ride.
Mexico already isn't taking dollars. And if they do take American dollars, they're giving you a very, very bad exchange rate. They want pesos now.
Rock on. I'm going to be an illegal alien there. I'm going to the border. That is all of that is.
Pesos to the dollar now.
Well, if you look at historical precedent, like where they say clipping coins, right? That's from the Roman Empire so all the little edges around the outside of a gold coin, because the empire was losing money, so they couldn't actually have a full coin. All empires, when they start printing money or doing it, they're at the end stage. Clearly there's all these patterns, 1600-year patterns. You're looking at the end of effeminate age. So if you look at our society, it is the natural part has been teased out. So look, Louis the 16th time period, you couldn't tell the dude's just more effeminate than the chicks.
Yeah.
The Visigoth, Gibeon said that the Romans had become a puny race and deserved to be conquered. Right? The United States are the lowest testosterone in the world. We are at that pattern, and we just accept that, okay, we're at that pattern. It's nothing new. We are at the end of effeminate age, period. So what always happens? 8 years of the guillotine, or the Visigoths sack Rome. There's always something, and we're right up against that. And if you are a happy warrior, you keep warning people, but you better be prepared at least. Just
Secure your
understand.
wealth. Get rid of your digital ones and zeros out of the bank and secure your wealth to get your money out of the bank.
That right there, right on my desk, right? That's a cougar
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So, but I mean, gold is not, you don't make a profit off of gold. It's just a hedge, but it's smart to have a hedge. And, you do what's practical, but don't obsess. Because when we start getting obsessive, then we're just trying to play God and control it. And here, what we don't ammo, you need 500 rounds. The rest of it's going to be road candy. Pick it up off the ground. So but is all that going to happen? I don't know. Maybe not. I try to come back to the day. I'm prepared for 30 days, and we'll see what happens.
Keep some cash on hand. Transfer your, what you're not eating on every month, transfer it over into something that's going to be tangible, whatever that might be. I am actually a silver guy because I can afford 10 ounces of silver, every whatever, $270, $280, whatever. I can afford that. And that 10 ounces of silver and 10 ounces, it adds up. And when this does kick off, and when all the housing market collapsed because of BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard buying up everything and kicking everybody out, there's obviously going to be houses available for stacks of silver. There's going to be that time. And I don't know about you, but do you think if there's his white hats, do you think they're going to let it play out and dump it on Trump's office? Because Trump's going to be our next president. That's it.
Yeah. I think that Trump has the acute, obviously, he thinks like we think, but again, I can't speak for the man, although he's a very good businessman. And I know that he wants to make sure that the dollar is solid. And I think he'll do it. I think that, the question is, can we end the Federal Reserve System? Can we? It's not by accident that President Trump had Andrew Jackson's picture in his office, right? Andrew Jackson was the only president. No, Thomas Jefferson did the first. Andrew Jackson did the second. And Andrew Jackson, by the way, had an interruption between his terms. He did an executive order for that.
Yeah.
So if it's a common currency law can do it, or you can have competing currencies. That one will work, right? And if we have a competing currency and it's fair, the Fed is gone in moments.
Last week they just announced Iraq. I guess wants to join also BRICS. So the companies are coming on.
Yeah, and can that have an impact? Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, we can only conjecture on that. Other than they bought up the gold a long time ago, right? So there's a lot of gold over there, and they have the resources over there too in the ground. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. And I've heard so many, horror stories about this, that, and whatever, but it just keeps on kind of bumbling along. And I would think that obviously if Trump is a student of those things, that is something that will be important for him to stabilize. And I'm confident that he will. I think that that's something that we don't need to worry about. But again, there's two different statements. I think that means been in my opinion. That's my opinion. When I say it's been my experience, that means I've personally experienced it. Like if you touch a red stove, it'll burn you, right? I experienced that. So I think it's just my opinion. I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to, you can just go off and ever for that. Basically that's who's running it all. It's the IMF, it's the central banks. When I came to the American people in 2010 and said, the critical path for this war is the central banks. You take that out and all this stops. They just couldn't get it in their minds.
Yep.
Well, I've heard somebody talk about, a Cuban Missile-like crisis, whatever that might be. And of course, if I was a white hat, like you were just talking about, and I was writing this story or whatever, and I was going to have it play out, I would definitely want
what I want to communicate to our teams, right, to your soldiers, and you're influential, I'm sure, your leaders in your community. I want you to create it in a sense of wonder and excitement, right? What have we been taught all our lives is probably not true. So the president picks up a telephone on his desk and calls a dude walking on the moon. And
right.
Oh yeah, that's totally legit. I mean, how much have we been taught in our lives it's not true? So now we're it's uncomfortable, but because of unbelievable, indefatigable work, we're starting to be living in a different place. And
we all believed that there was an evolutionary column and we had this much layer and this was, the prehistoric and then the Cretaceous and then another, 100 million years of space dust, I guess, layered up. And we had this evolutionary column, which from what I am understanding as we're going through is being disproven, which is more based along the lines of creation and proving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Bible being correct. What do you know?
Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's so funny how these things all marry up. The Big Bang sure sounds like let there be light. It sure sounds
right.
And the thing that's so interesting is these things don't have to be mutually exclusive. But science has become a religion, obviously. And if you don't believe it, you're a heretic, and that's fine. You can do that, and they're maturing as a group. The hard part about that is there's a cold-blooded side to it. And I have to be honest, I'm making light of it because I want to make sure our soldiers are engaged. But this is nasty stuff. I know what motivates evil, greed, fear.
Yes. Power.
So, and ridicule. And do we use those weapons even though we're warriors of light? Yes, we do. And we make them more afraid. And unfortunately, for us as warriors is we do not want to become Sith in the process, right? You have to balance, right? So yes, it's true that we have to use things against them, but we know that we're doing that for good. I don't know. It's so amazing. And I want all of us to be more like, wow, we're not sheeple. I don't know why. No. And then I obviously I'm a Star Wars person.
Agreeing with you, Keith, is an absolute wolf. I mean, we do have footage, and maybe we can put it up in the links and stuff like that. Of footage of her speaking at the last BOS, and she literally she's on point, she's articulate, and she lets them have it.
Yeah, and it's so funny because who wants to do that, right? And I work like regular work, right? And you go there, and it's men mostly, and they're like, politics is disgusting and vile and blah blah blah. I don't want anything to do with it. And you're like, well, then who's going to? No, who wants to do that? Nobody wants.
You bring up a great point, Keith. I'm noticing there's a preponderance of women that are waking up to this stuff as opposed to the men. So I will put a call out there to men, please. Start looking at whatever your wife's trying to show you. Don't call them nuts just because they think this or just because they think that. Don't call them a conspiracy theorist, because we all know that's a CIA term coined after the Kennedys. Use your own common sense discernment and look at the material.
Well, I will, it's a nice meandering conversation and it all fits together nicely. Granted, yes, but I will say that the men in our country, especially, white males in particular, we have been canceled. And we are looking to our women how they've actually participated in that. And when I get questions about boys and girls sports, the first thing that pops in my mind is girls in the Boy Scouts. They won't even give little boys the Boy Scouts. So we have this unbelievable outrage when men are in girls sports. What about boys?
Absolutely.
There is Girl Scouts. Why can't the boys have Boy Scouts? Or when a woman comes over and plays in a male sport, it's celebrated. This is not equal. What about an all traditional, all male military academy? Because that's the culture that you've engendered for 100 years. But where was the outrage then?
Keith, I really appreciate you saying that. I hate to interrupt you like that, but you hit a nerve for me because it disgusted me. I know that there's these women wrestlers and all this other stuff, but to see a girl in boys wrestling, to me, is the most demeaning thing you can do to a boy. This is a young man. I saw this one wrestling match when my boys were doing wrestling where this very tall, skinny young boy, you can tell he's going through that growth spurt, and he's wrestling against this little short girl. She goes for his ankles every time, takes him down. People laugh. I went over to him and I said, I want to commend you. This is after the race or after the match. I said, I want to commend you. Your parents raised you right. I said, it's a shame when they put girls in there and you have to let this girl put you on the ground so you can fulfill being a man. I said, you are a good young man. I said, this was set against you from the beginning. I said, so never let what happened in that ring deter you from what you are. You are meant to be someone who should not put their hands on a girl, should not wrestle them down hard. So I'm so glad that you said that, because I'm pretty disgusted that we don't get enraged of these. Now, I've played boy baseball. There's a difference between something when there's not contact. And I was a kid, you'd never known I was a girl at the time because I looked like a little tomboy. But boy, when you get in these full contact things, it should be different. I don't think it's okay that they've done that. And you're right. Girls don't belong in Boy Scouts and boys don't belong in Girl Scouts.
I mean, as an anecdotal, but my stepson, he was in wrestling and there was a very good female wrestler, and it demoralized them. It did. I
It
mean,
scars them.
You don't have a warrior culture, right? So,
No.
okay, Spetna, right? The Russians, and I speak Russian and I married a Russian, so don't speak badly. I don't want to hear it because they're actually very nice people. But where they would take their final exam was they would hold, one guy would hold the guy's ankles, the other guy would hold his hands, so he'd be flat. The next guy would come and dip a cinder block in gasoline, put it on that guy's back, light it on fire, and then they'd have to break it with a sledgehammer on his back before they would put him down. That was their kind of final exam. Meanwhile, in West Point, our dudes are wearing heels for a week for sensitivity training. Who the hell do you think's going to win in 44 below?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting. This is nonsense at this point. But again, coming back to the idea of what's happening, you know, you talk to people in the satellite states of the Soviet Union, and what was a very distinct characteristic of the late Soviet Union, the men were beat down. They were just beat down. They were beta dogs, right? Not now in Russia, I can tell you that, right? But back then, so, you know, these are all signs that we have been fighting communism, and they got in deep. They got in real deep. Now you see the Zoomers are starting to push back. I call them the Phoenix generation. They are, but they have a lot of biology against them. You know, they've got low tests and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, these are all the wonders of God, right? And unfortunately, you know, and we all sit here and looking at it. So again, it comes back to, you know, operation, your area of operation, and what is you hope to accomplish over what time period. Right? So you know, it sounds like you have a specialty in Maricopa. Is that what am I understanding?
Maricopa County, yes.
Yes. And, you know, Maricopa County has brought a lot of attention to the nation. It's done a fantastic job of just showing, not only does it show that this is, you know, it's obviously it's engaging in their war. They know how you're going to react, where you're going to react, what you're going to do, how to ignore you. So this frontal attack, it will never work. You're trying to attack the castle with a broomstick. Understand that and keep their attention, but you better have something else on
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Like Sun Tzu says, you will never beat the orthodox with the orthodox.
That's right.
You can only beat the orthodox with the unorthodox. And where we are as a community is learning, what is that?
Well, the unorthodox would be 500 people showing up at the BOS meeting.
But that's a big deal. That's hard to do.
You know, and 30 actually already had an effect. So,
Yes.
you know, the fact
develop
that
a
30
methodology
people can have an effect. What would 100 or 500 do?
Yes.
Perfect. So what is the issue? Okay, let's break it down, the critical path, and let's get down to the nut of the issue for us as South Carolina. I'm so not South Carolina citizens, Americans, or and see, we still say these United States. We still say Union. We're a member of the Union, right? So you won't ever hear me say democracy. Never. You know, but what is the issue for us as a community? We're reshuffling the chairs in the Titanic. There's too few of us. We have to really concentrate on recruitment and retainage. The half-life of our soldiers is about 2 years, and then they're just done. You know, and I know it because we work in the reorganization process. I get them in, I get them going. Either the enemy takes them over because they give them stuff, or they just burn out and walk away. Fine. But if we have a good recruitment and retainage process, then we can do that. But we are so focused, we're so mission critical that we never think, well, we need to get some more personnel. So you not, you know, just listening to you and watching you, that's not necessarily the profile that I would pick for you. But in your communities, then find somebody who's a good recruiter. Even considering putting money into paying someone an hourly rate to recruit. Vet that person, explain to them that this is what the enemy is going to do to try to get rid of you, and then give them a 2-year shelf life. But think. If you want 100 people to show up, then you need 100 names.
Amen, sir.
Amen.
You'll have to be on my list of 1 people to call.
Right. I love, you know, it's so funny. I don't actually like that. My politics are leave me the hell alone. I literally, I think fences make the best neighbors. I tried this for many years, y'all, and at a certain point, I realized the sheeple are just not going to get it. And
Yeah.
I was disgusted, and I can take care of myself. Hell, I'm an operator. I can take care of myself. Got no problem. So I walked away, and there was a time period in there when the Trump thing was going on. I wasn't paying attention in 2015, 2016, none of that.
Yeah.
But my children are homeschooled. They don't even know Dixie is not the national anthem, right? So we, at a certain point, though, in this thing, they try to put a mask on my face. These bastards thought that they had so much power that they could get a man like me to wear a mask. And when we go back and look at our enemy and the biggest mistake they made, I guarantee you it's the mask. Because men like me all over the place went, no. And I started re-engaging and re-engaging.
Arrested Miami-Dade, but I was one of them. And my wife too. She stood up. Yep. There was a lot of people. You're right. That whole thing. That was the linchpin. As soon as they got pulled, everybody started waking up.
Yep. And they recycle these things, right? So that was the Spanish flu did the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that they recycle them.
That's right.
Bad school. They have a bad guy school somewhere. I swear they do. They just do it over and over again. Too bad. Like when you think about bad guys, this is my comical thought, but I always think about this. Do you remember your Superman? Does everybody remember your Superman? Like the first Superman? Yes?
Yes.
The Lex Luthor beat Superman. He did. Superman came into the room. He said something was in that box. He couldn't see because it was lead, and it was kryptonite. And he threw Superman into the swimming pool, and if it wasn't for Miss Chessmacher, right? So these people are brilliant people. If they would just make a product, man. I mean, why do they do it? It doesn't make any sense other than it's just pure evil. They pick that path because our adversary is actually very, very smart, and you cannot underestimate them for a moment. And I sure wish they would just not be that way. I don't get it. I don't understand why they want to do it. They were the ones who always played the bad guys when they were little kids. I wouldn't want to do that.
Excuse me. Can I interject here? I just wanted to share. I know you guys talked about, what motivated you. For me, it was that my two young boys went in the military and they force vaccinated them to serve our country. That's what ignited me as a mom. And then knowing that I could do nothing about all the I had to go, well, who's in charge of all this? And I had to go, who's in charge of that border? So I say that for a reason because I am very honored that you guys have mentioned my name a couple times, but I want you to know my nature is not to be doing this at all. My mother is shocked that I get behind a microphone and I have people looking at me because I could not stand public speaking. But I think what drives me the most is the burden that God, and I know that you guys have this, the burden that God puts on our heart.
Yes.
That is what's driving us to do what we need to do. Because he's calling us for such a time as this, to do this. Because if we're not getting our strength from him, we are going to burn out. And so we have to get our strength from him. And I don't mean religiously, I mean intimately with our creator. And then to remember that ultimately, and this is really the thing that I cannot get out of my head, that if we do not stand up, movie, grab your popcorn. You want to tick me off, you tell me that. Because I guarantee you the little child that can't walk because of what just happened to them, they don't feel like, I wish I could eat some popcorn. They don't even care about popcorn. They want to escape. So to me, I just want to encourage you, want everyone to remember, it's bigger and it's broader than the political side of everything. It really is evil versus good. And we've been called to protect the children. And that is what has motivated us to do what we do. Sometimes we get distracted with the politics, but ultimately, I just met William and I know he has a heart for children. I know he's got a protector heart. I've not known Lewis that long. I've not known Robert that long. I've not known our Mr. Boomerang over there very long. And Keith, I've just met you. But the thing I know is that God has put this burden on our heart to fight this battle at this time. because this is not a political battle. This truly is evil versus good. And we have to get our strength from the Creator. And then we can encourage one another. But ultimately, the victory is always just knowing that that day when I wake up, one, I have a purpose for my life and I've been chosen and I see and I understand because God has enlightened me. And the same with all of us. It's not because we're so intelligent, it's because he's enlightened us. And I just want to let you guys all know, I appreciate your kind words of things that you've said and referenced me, but I am so grateful for you men that are standing up. And you are standing in that gap. And yes, there are more women, but you know what? Even when Jesus was doing what he was doing, it was, you hear about the women following him around. So that's normally the role. And I don't mean like the women are just followers. I mean, they're leaders naturally and they're involved. But I just want you men to know how grateful we are for you. Having William there the other day, when I was standing up to say, no, we're not going to listen to Thomas Galvin speak. You're not going to give us that double standard. And then I had this man's booming voice stand up and say, yeah, we're not going to. And, it was just one of those things where it's not the first time. Lewis stood up when it was going on. Daniel Wood stood up when it was going on. And you guys don't know how important that is to have that voice that comes in as reinforcements and even leads the way. And even if it's just to grab the arm and pull you along, that's what we're here for, is to work together, because these children, which are the epitome of God's heart toward all of us, he said, we need to have the heart of a child. That's what he's told everyone, is you must have the heart of a child. And so that is really ultimately why we're doing it. Sometimes we forget because we get caught up with the appointment of who's the sheriff and what is the board of supervisors doing and what evil person is doing this over here. But ultimately, we've got to be doing it because God's children need us. And if that doesn't motivate you, then we will burn out. And that's why we've got to just remember that's what's got to motivate us, is these children desperately need us to stand in the gap for them. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, Lezley. You're an amazing person. You really are. And such a
Well, I mean, and like we're saying, everybody has their role, right? So, I went to a college preparatory. You had to have 1,000 in our SATs in 8th grade. Every one of those kids, I had friends that got 930 turbos when they were 16 years old. They were nasty little children. I hate to say that, but every day you would get ready to spend the whole day defending yourself emotionally from rich little kids. And that's exactly what I'm doing now.
Yes.
Right? So there's a reason why we all have our different lanes, right?
Yes.
And I completely agree with, I don't want to do this. So I'm a Star Wars guy, right? I literally struggled with God to the point where I did nothing to do with him. Nothing, right? But Dagobah would always root me when Yoda was talking to Luke about the Force and being in the tree and the ship. And now I'm a Christian, but it all fits for me. But in that realm, I always thought of myself, if you know your Star Wars, as a Boba Fett. Boba Fett was not good or bad. He was just mercenary. But eventually life will turn. If you keep doing this, you're going to become a Jedi. It's just the way it is. And I've struggled with that because I don't want to be a good guy. I don't want to be a bad guy. I want to be nothing. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's the way it goes. But not for a moment. You are in that realm. I'm in this realm. Whatever it may be, God knows his chess pieces.
Yes.
Where they are, right? And I think you're right. If you are praying for the Lord's will for you and the power to carry it out every day, some days that means just do the dishes.
That's right. Laundry.
Whatever. It doesn't all have to be so grand, right? And I can't tell you. I mean, I'm sure. Could you remember? Right? I don't know the exact event that you were in, but when you were up there speaking, do you remember how you felt after? It probably felt like you had been through a battle. I know
Literally.
it is for me. And you come home and you sit down and you're like, that was awful. I never want to do that again. As long as I'm alive, I'm feeling kind of numb and weird, and I got to take a shower. I don't like it. Like it. And that seems to be a common theme.
Yes.
That those of us who are doing it actually don't want to do it. And I think what's really interesting in watching your temperament is that when they do it to you, you probably get that fire because you have to confront. You actually don't want to. So the fact that you're having to do it actually helps to get you even more fired up, more pissed off. I know for me, when someone forces me to set a boundary, I'm pissed about it. Like, let's get along, let's get along. Okay, let's not. And I know that it definitely motivates me. I would rather this all was just, let's just come to a solution. Well, it ain't going to work. See, I totally relate to what you're saying. And then not a lot of people are going to remember us in the books and the stories, but there are a hell of a lot of us. Right?
Yes.
Every one of you, every one of you that are here.
We all got a chapter to write, brother. We all got a chapter to write in this book.
Yeah, isn't it phenomenal that we're and it wasn't even like football, for example. I remember, I think it was 20 years ago. I like football. I went to Virginia Tech, if you know where that is, and we watched football, and they were good with Michael Vick back in the day. And I was watching a football game. My wife is from another country, and doesn't understand why I watch all this stuff. But I think it was 20 years ago, and it was an onside kick at the end of the game. They kicked it to Boston. Boston College kicked it to Virginia Tech's best player. He hit him in the arms. He dropped it. Boston College guy got it. Next play, Hail Mary. Boston College won when the clock ran out. And I bent over like I was having a heart attack. Then I walked out on the beach for 2 hours, and I came back. And the wife gave me the ultimatum: is football or kisses. So I gave up on football, not because I'm a good person or anything, but because I want my wife to like me. But it ended up being a good thing because I had more time to do other things. And now I don't do that. I'm just not interested in sports. But again, it's not because I'm awesome. It's because that happened. I'm 24 years sober for a reason, right?
Congratulations.
It's congratulating for somebody riding, it's like what you should. I don't think of it that way. It's like God didn't save my life so that I could buy a Porsche.
That's right.
In my 20s, in my mid-20s, I was such a worthless piece of human garbage. And I got everything I deserved. And I remember rattling my saber and I never lost a job, never got a DUI, never went to treatment and that sort of stuff. But if I was going to drink, I was going to black out, drink, and fight cops. And it was just going to be that way. It was a disaster. And I remember starting to kind of miss work. And I remember I was in the fetal position in the shower at 20-something years old, 25, 26, and I didn't want it anymore. I remember saying, God, help me. And I hated God at the time. Hated him. See somebody like sniffing a wine. I'm like, what are you doing? Drink the damn bottle.
Keith,
Robert,
thank you so much for bringing the heat here. I'm watching the chat room and watching how much they're responding to your message. And there's a couple of clips here I want to grab out of that and make them available to people, shorter version of it, because they're not going to sit here and watch a 90-minute interview. But thank you for bringing the heat. We really, really, really appreciate you today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Robert. Take care.
Yes, thank you, everyone. You guys have been great. We really appreciate you. Matt, you've been very quiet. We know you're there in the background.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Thank you for letting me sit in.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for watching. Thank you, Lezley. You are a force to be reckoned with. It's so cool to have you on here. We're going to have you back, as you know. You can be a regular here. We really enjoy having you here. And for all of you who are watching today, we are sponsored by a great little product called Neumi. Company's really great. They have this great product, NutraSwish, and it is a glutathione product, nanoparticle glutathione product, which glutathione is really important. It's the master antioxidant and helps your body deal with oxidative stress. And one of the challenges that we have is that if you take it in a supplement in the digestive tract, you don't get much of it. So this goes in your mouth. You swish it around, and it goes into your blood system right away. It goes right to the liver, and the liver can deal with it and use it right away to help your body recover quicker after exercise. Helps you sleep better, gives you more energy. I always swish before the show. And if you want the best-looking skin, we have Neumi Skin. And this is a spray, and you spray it on your skin. And the glutathione helps with oxidative stress, so it helps get rid of wrinkles, helps lighten your skin, helps tighten your wrinkles up. And women are saying, hey, we don't have to use makeup as much anymore. That's really kind of fun for that. And then for the ladies, we have Neumi Hers. And Neumi Hers is really good for that time of the month, for women who are going through menopause and dealing with hot flashes. A lot of women say if they take it, they swish it around their mouth. It's botanicals that are also nanoparticleized, and it gets right into the bloodstream right away. And it stops hot flashes in their tracks. Pretty cool. Anyway, you want to find out more about it and help support our show, go to renegademedia.tv/energy, renegademedia.tv/energy, and you can find out more information there. Okay, just a quick programming note. Tomorrow, we are going to have a show, and Buckshot in our chat room is going to join us, and we may have Christine Geiger as well, who is in the midst of a battle right now there in Michigan, so we may have her come on as well. If she has something to report, she said she'll join us, so it'll be a really fun show tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Can't wait. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all of you. You guys really make this show happen and make it possible for us to continue doing this. And it's really cool to see Lewis. I know he's on the road today, but it's really nice that he was able to stop in. The